Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So why do I like Epiphone guitars better than Gibsons? Well, it certainly isn't for value retention, that's for sure, because Epiphones do not hold their value. Within about 6 months, you can count on losing between 50 to 60% of whatever you paid for the guitar. Unless, of course, you sell it privately, you might get a little bit more money, but don't necessarily count on that all the time, okay? But in general, yeah, that's about the loss. After about 4 years, even on my 2018 Gibson Les Paul Studio, if we count it without the upgrades, because upgrades don't matter, okay, it actually devalues the guitar to some people. But music stores, if you're selling back to a music store or selling to a music store, my Gibson Les Paul Studio, that was a 2018 Smokehouse Burst, stock or modified, wouldn't have made a difference. Like I said, I lost about 50% after 4 years. So Gibsons do retain their value a lot better, okay, even in the studios, which seem to be the ones that are becoming more and more popular that people are buying as the studio over other Gibsons because they're still reasonably priced. I mean, I paid $1,800 for mine back in 2018 when it was released in the Smokehouse Burst finish. The same guitar now sells for $23.99. And yeah, that's kind of a big jump in price, you know. But hey, you know what? I think it's $23.99, or is it 20? It's either $22.99 or $23.99. See, this is $23.99. It's about a $500 price increase in the last 4 years. I only sold mine back to the music store only because life happened and I had to fix my car, and that's more important to have my wheels, so I have transportation. So that had to go. Otherwise, yeah, if the car wouldn't have screwed up, I'd still have it. But either way, it worked out to be a benefit in the end either way, because Gibson month, of course, rolled around again this year, and we still have another, 21 days left of it. And I managed to pick myself up this Les Paul Jr. For $629, and they actually took $60 off the price of the custom in Alpine White that I got. So it was $1,059. It's now $999, and so I paid $1,000 for it basically, and I paid $629 for this, and that is still far less than what I even paid for my Gibson Les Paul Studio. And I got two guitars this way for less. So, yeah, you can get more for your buck out of Epiphones than you can out of Gibsons. You also get a lot better tuning stability out of an Epiphone, regardless. I mean, I've never had an Epiphone yet or played on one yet that had a poorly cut nut or any kind of tuning instabilities. So that has a lot to be said about Epiphone's quality for tuning stability, at least, over Gibson. And Epiphone generally is pretty good on the ball with their finishes being really superior. You don't see that many blems that show up of anything on finishes on Epiphones, where you do tend to see it more often actually over the last few years on Gibsons. But not too often you get any real blems on Epiphones. I mean, it does happen, but it's not quite as often. Fretwork between the two of them, that's always a pig in a poke on fret edges especially. As far as even frets go, I've never had a problem with my Gibson, never had a problem with an Epiphone with uneven frets. So that's been good. Fret edging, no problems with the Gibson. Epiphones, this one has a little teensy weensy bit. And if there's anything on my Alpine, it's very much almost not even there. Yeah. And the Gibson counterparts to these two guitars will cost you between 2 to 3 times more money for the same guitar. Maybe have different pickups, but it's still white, gold, and black, and this. Like, who cares? P90, yep, this is a P90 Pro. You're going to probably find a P90 Pro or whatever it is in the Gibson, but, you know, I mean, they've changed the Junior over the years, too. I believe it was about probably a year ago or so. I actually tried out a right-handed one because I didn't have this in a lefty at the time. I don't believe. No, well, nobody had stock at least. They did have it in a lefty, but no stock. This one I had to bring in along with the Alpine. They were brought in from the main warehouse. So, but I'd already tried the right-handed versions of the same guitars out, and it's like, yeah, they're fine. I like it. I don't like the buttons on this thing for the button tuners. The rest of the tuner part, fine, but I don't like the buttons. But you know what? They do have vintage tuners with tulips that are plastic, and I figured, you know what? I was going to go for Grovers or something with tulips, but then I got to thinking, well, why spend $140 on a set of tuners when I can spend under $100, still get the same vintage thing with a nut and washer system on the vintage, which is definitely an upgrade from, the bushing style. Much better tuners these are. But I can get them with the tulips already, and it's under $100, and it's like, take these off. I can sell these, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're a perfectly fine tuner. They hold fantastic. No issues with them. And I'll probably just sell these off when I go to upgrade to the new ones. And because I kind of like the traditional look of the tulip. It's more of a traditional look on any Les Paul, period. So that's just my preference, right? We all have our things. But otherwise, I've started upgrades. I put the chrome plate on here for the truss rod, and of course, I've got the chrome knobs. I picked those up the other day at Long McQuaid instead of ordering on Amazon, because these were like $17 or something for the pair, and it's like, they're fantastic, and I like them better than what came with it. I still have some upgrades I want to do yet to the white one. I have changed the poker chip already from the black plastic to gold metal one, and so I like that sort of thing. But we all have our preferences. But even as a stock guitar, there's nothing wrong with this thing for $629. Why pay for the Gibson one when this is equally as good and plays just as great, sounds great, and has a properly cut nut? So that's another bonus. I've not seen any Gibsons that have a properly cut nut. Every Epiphone I've ever played or owned, and I've owned a number of Epiphones, I've only ever owned two Gibsons, my Les Paul, and I had a acoustic that I owned for about 24 hours, and I took it back and said, take it. I don't want it. It's garbage, because one of the ribs had popped, and it's like, I didn't even bang the thing, and it's like, it just spontaneously went, and I'm like, what the heck? Seriously, that was $1,600 and some dollars for that guitar. And it didn't even come with a pickup either, but still, I didn't really care about that part. And the sound hole up top, that had a plastic ring on it, which was pretty cheaped out. But, I really didn't mind that part too much. But that rib popping like that, I was like, no way, man. That's bad quality there. That's just like, forget it. That did me in. I said, no way. I'm sticking with my Taylors. But I do have an Epiphone classical nylon string guitar. But otherwise, I have Taylor acoustics, and I'm sticking with Taylors. I've owned Martins, I've owned other brands, and I still like some of the Yamahas, but, I'm pretty much sold on the whole Taylor thing. But when it comes to the value retention, yeah, Epiphones don't hold their value, but I don't care. I don't buy my guitars to just, play them and sell them off privately. If I don't like a guitar that I've bought after 6 months, if I'm not playing it, it's not necessarily because I don't like it. It's just that I end up having a favorite or two, because I go through a lot of gear, as many of you have figured out by now. I spent like tens of thousands of dollars in the last couple of years, and I'm like, I just rack my head going, man, even the restocking fees I've lost on so much gear, I'm like, why? But I'm trying to find what I actually need. I have to have a guitar. To me, you have to have a guitar that you like to look at. You've got to look at it and go, I really want to play this. And you have to like how it plays. You have to like how the pickups react with your amplifier, etc. Okay? That sort of thing. So, and you have to love the feel of it and everything else, right? Otherwise, why are you even buying it? What's the point, right? Now, I have bought guitars that were going to be project guitars, that sort of thing, because it was just, I could do it, right? So, and I've bought and flipped a lot of guitars too and made a good profit on some. Others I broke even on. It kind of varies, right? But, and sometimes I get some really good steal of a deals. Like I got this G310 SG. It's an Epiphone. And I did have to do a little bit of a setup on it. So I haven't changed the strings and cleaned the fretboard yet or polished the frets. But I was waiting to see what was going to happen with that low E string, because it had some buzz issue. And the neck is finally lifted up on it enough that it's now clear now, and I don't have to touch the nut. And it's like, thank you. Okay, so now I can go and change the strings, polish the frets, and get her all 100% the way I want it. But otherwise, yeah, it's a fantastic guitar for 150 bucks. Got that along McQuaid. Now that's a G310. It's an old model. It's I believe mine's a 2010 model, so it's quite old, but it's still in absolutely great shape. And it's like wow, you know. So it was looked after, and it was probably not even played or barely played. There's not even a mark on a fret. So it's kind of like that's all right. I mean, sometimes you get these gems even from your local music store. So, but when I look at guitars too, I'm not opposed to Gibson. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Gibson does have their share of problems, and they've had their share of problems and quality control issues. But what company hasn't? One of the things I do want to actually probably expand upon in this video would be headstock breakage. Gibsons are very well known for it. Well, so are Epiphones. So is any guitar actually. Strats and Tellys tend to be not immune to it, but more resilient to droppage and accidents, right? They don't tend to break that easily in comparison. I have seen a couple of Tellys and Strats that did have broken headstocks, and it can happen. It's just, it takes a lot more excessive force for it to happen to a Strat or Telly. But Gibson, Epiphone, any guitar, period, that has a back rake of any kind on it, it's going to be a lot easier, even with acoustics. Acoustics are not anything special, okay? They are still prone to it as well. It drops in the right circumstance, the headstock's coming off. One guy dropped his Takamine, and the headstock came clear off. An LTD, same thing. I've seen that too. I've seen a couple other guitars that you wouldn't think would have a headstock breakage problem, but yep, sure enough, they broke. So it really isn't an isolated thing that it's Gibson only that's happening to. It happens to all brands, all types of models of guitars. It happens to, I mean, the biggest thing is the only reason why a headstock breaks is you're an idiot. Like you've actually put the thing in danger in a situation where it can happen. Now, there are odd occasions where people do not install guitar hooks on the wall properly. Their guitar is going to fall off, whether it's a lightweight or a heavyweight. And I've seen it, and I've seen pictures. And, all we do is we tell the guys, well, maybe you should have actually gone into the stud, or maybe you should have used the proper drywall plugs, because obviously those little crummy blue things, little skinny little bullety things, they're not going to work for you. They're not going to withstand the weight of a Les Paul for long, or any heavy guitar, and that thing is coming off the wall. You're better off with those corkscrew things that really grip on. They're good for about 20 pounds each. You literally drill them into the drywall. Okay, just make sure there's no stud in the way. But anyway, or you go right into the studs. I hung up 2 backboards. My landlord actually helped with that. And he put them all the mounts are into the studs, right? And then, of course, I also use longer than normal screws instead of using the ones that come with the hooks. I've never had the guitars fall, and I've had a lot of heavy-weighted guitars on those 2 walls, filling up the entire racks, and not even a bend or a twist in my backboards. Like things are installed correctly. And that makes a huge difference. These 2 here, they're each into a stud. So, and they've got like screws that long going into the studs. So they're both into studs because we don't have backboards up there, because I didn't want to fill that wall the same way, but I can fit a lot of guitars total in here. Like, what do we got? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Just on my back rack, I can do 13 guitars, depending on what they are, of course, acoustics versus electrics. Acoustics take up a bit more space. But 13 there, plus 2 here, that's 15, right? Plus I still have room for a couple more across here before I interfere with my doorway. But it kind of varies on that. And so you got to install the hooks right if you're going to hang your guitars on the wall. I put them on the wall just because I have no choice. I have in-floor heating. They have to be 3 to 4 feet off the ground level. Well, it's not going to get you much more than a couple of inches with a stand. And I did have to use stands at one time until we hung these up. And yeah, I had to be careful. And I don't even have kids or animals in the house, so I still have to be careful being on stands, and I had to lay down carpet over top so the heat wouldn't get through to the guitar, right? So it's like, so I'm kind of glad they all hang on the walls now. It's much better. But in-floor heating has its great points. It has its drawbacks. You are forced to hang up your guitars. But it's just the way it goes. And I don't mind because they're all here. They're easily accessible, whatever. But getting back on the topic of Epiphone and Gibson. Gibson guitars are definitely a lot more money even for the same or similar model, right? And sometimes, you can't get the color you want on a Gibson. You can on the Epiphone, probably. And vice versa. It's kind of one of those things where, can I get? And anything you go custom shop, you are paying through the nose. Like even for, take a 2018 Les Paul Studio, right? Now, you want to order a custom shop version. So you don't want smokehouse burst. You don't want any of the other colors. You want your color. So you want it in hot pink, or maybe you want a butterscotch finish, right? Something unique, right? Well, paint is still paint, but because it's a custom order, right? Because they don't make it in that color, but they'll do the color, right? It's going to cost you a lot of money just for the paint job alone. So you got to kind of decide, is it really worth it to me? Well, if it is, you do it. If it's not, you don't, right? But if you want something bad enough, you're going to pay the price for it. That's all there is to it, okay? Plain and simple. It's kind of like, I had a choice between this with the single P90, or I go TV yellow with the two P90s. The difference being is 2 versus 1 and a color, mostly, okay? But they're both the exact same price. And I thought, well, I don't really use a neck pickup anyways. And besides, I have a Telecaster that has neck and bridge. And I like both pickups in it, actually, in my Tele. And I'm looking at this going, okay, well, this is just a single bridge pickup. It's a P90 and sounds good for the distortion. I like that. Took a while to find the right distortion pedal with the right kind of sound capability that I'm after. Okay, but then I go to my East River Overdrive and I play it. Now, I like the sound of this East River on all my guitars far better than the Boss Blues Driver. I found the Boss Blues Driver too break-uppy, too distorted, right? This has got a nice overdrive to it. Then I got my clean. It's great. I love it. So it's kind of the thing where you got to kind of get your gear to talk together, right? And that's put me in a position where I've gone through a lot of amplifiers, a lot of different pedals, pedal board processors. I'm still on the hunt for another amp. I got rid of the Pathfinder 10 watt because I'm looking at getting into a secondary amp that I can not only use here for the students, but also in church. And so far, the Marshall's doing a great job, but I found that for hauling this to church, because I'm also hauling my cajon with me and my electric guitar, it's kind of like, this is a little bulky. Maybe I'm going to try something smaller and see if that does it. If not, I'll just buy this. This is only $129. That's cheap for a used amp, okay? So for now, I'm renting it. So I ordered in a rental for one of the Yamaha THR amps. I'm not going to tell you which one, but I have not had it on the channel yet. So it'll be a new one to the channel for THR series. But I had the 30 watt. What I didn't like about it was the fact that it had that Line 6 wireless built into it. They don't give you the transmitter, so I couldn't even use my Boss wireless system with it, even though the jack is there for manual use, because the receiver interfered with my Boss stuff. And it's like, and you couldn't shut that receiver circuit off. So it's like, that sucks. And then I had this little $200 jobby, a little small thing, but it kind of just wasn't enough punch power, even though the price was great, but also lacked a few features that I could use. So that, of course, was something that, nope, not going to do this. So I found another THR amp that has everything I need and then some, but I want to hear what it sounds like in real life, and I also want to try it mic'd up, because at church I'm going to mic it up, because I can't plug direct into the board with this thing either, so I have to mic up. And I've got a mic now for doing that, which, the sound you're hearing actually out of my Blackstar amp right now, that's actually going into the Sennheiser mic that I just got, which this microphone's getting tangled. But that Sennheiser mic is actually on the outside edge of the cone of the 10-inch speaker. So whatever, it's what we're going to get. I don't know what it's going to sound like until I listen back to this thing. However, equipment needs to be gotten to work with everything you need, right? So when I look at Epiphones and Gibsons, I look at, okay, what does an Epiphone offer me that Gibson does not? Well, Gibson definitely does not offer me a reasonable price. And Gibson does not offer me very good tuning stability in any of the Les Pauls that I would be interested in, where I can get the same Les Pauls from Epiphone, same color, same features, maybe not the same exact pickups, okay, but at 5 times or lesser, so it could be twice as less money, or 3 times as less, 4 times less, 5 times. I can get it from Epiphone for far less money, and still getting something that I'm very happy with. I can play live with. I'm fine with it, and it's not breaking the bank. And I don't really care about being a status symbol. I've done my time as a status symbol thing with Gibson on the Gibson groups, and believe me, those guys are snobby. But you know what? So are all the other groups. They all have their snobbies up there too. You know, but Gibson is a really snobby group. Like, you show up there with an Epiphone, even though you own a Gibson, they tell you, go show that stuff off on the Epiphone floor. We don't want to see it here. This is the Gibson forum. You know, it's like, that's rude, considering some of these guys also have Epiphones as well. And it's like, wow, that's pretty cliquey club, you know what I mean? Anyways, it is what it is, right? People are people. But a Gibson is no better of a guitar, realistically, than an Epiphone. It's more expensive, but it doesn't mean that it's actually a better guitar, really. You know, a guitar is as good as its setup is, you know. Pickups are as good as what you prefer for your sound. Do they work for your sound? Then they're fine. You know, can you set the action up the way you prefer? 97% of the time, yes, you can. On pretty much any guitar on the market, 97% of the time, you can set up a guitar with a high action, no problem. Medium action, no problem. Low action, not usually a problem, okay? But a super, super, super low action can be problematic on a lot of different guitars, where some guitars, you might have to spend more money, or you might have to spend less money to get that. It's kind of a not everything's equal kind of fence, right? But then if you have to get a lesser guitar to get that lesser lower action that you want, you may have to take off some fret edges, smooth them out, level the frets. It might need something. Better tuners, better pickups, who knows? Maybe get rid of the plastic nut and go to a bone nut or a titanium nut or something that you like even better. That's the wonderful thing about guitars. We don't have to accept them 100% for what they are. We can change things if we want to. Just remember, when you start making changes, especially drastic ones, your warranty has gone bye-bye, okay? So if you care about a warranty, be careful what you change. So, but other than that, yeah, that's pretty much about where I'm at on this whole Epiphone to Gibson. Would I buy a Gibson again if the price was right, the guitar was right, and if I absolutely could not get that from Epiphone? Then yes, I would buy another Gibson. I have no issues with it, okay? I mean, the headstock's only going to break if I'm an idiot anyways, and that never happens, so I'll never have a broken headstock on any guitar. Never have, never will. So, you know, that's kind of how it happens. Something stupid happens. Kids, animals, yourself, you trip over an amp cord. I don't do amp cords. I do wireless. I don't have any more problems, you know, and I'm not replacing patch cords every once in a while either. I got one set of wireless. I've had them for a long time, and yep, that's the way it goes. So they work. That's all that matters, right? If it works, you do it. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Got something out of it. Got questions? Comments below. Ask away. I'll do the best I can to answer as always. So see ya.